Er der noget, jeg gør imens?
Vent på, hvornår...
Jamen, jeg er i gang.
Okay. I had enough.
Okay, start forfra.
I had enough.
He said angrily.
You ain't wanted here. We told you you ain't, and I tell you got flossy ideas about what you guys amount to. You ain't got sense enough in that chicken head to see we ain't stiffs. Suppose you get us cans, suppose you do. You think we hit the highway and look for another lousy two-bit job like this. You don't know. You don't know what we got our own range to go to and our own houses. We ain't got to stay here. We got a house and chickens and fruit trees and a place with 100 times prettier than this. We got our friends and that's what we got. Maybe there was a time when we got scared of getting canned, but we ain't no more. We got our own land and it's ours and we can go to it.
Curly's wife laughed at him.
Baloney.
She said,
I've seen too many you guys. If you had 2 bits in the world, why'd you be getting 2 shots of corn with it and sucking the bottom of the glass? I know you guys.
Candy's face had grown redder and redder, but before she was done speaking, he had control of himself. He was the master of the situation.
I might have knew.
He said gently.
Maybe you just better go along and roll your hoop. We ain't got nothing to say to you at all. We know what we got, and we don't care whether you know it or not. So maybe you just better scatter along now, 'cause Curly maybe ain't gonna like his ride out in the barn with our spindle stiffs.
She looked from one face to another, and they were all closed against her. And she looked longest at Lenny until he dropped his eyes in embarrassment. Suddenly she said,
Where'd you get them bruises on your face?
Lenny looked up guiltily.
Who? Me?
Yeah, you?
Lenny looked to Candy for help, and then he looked at his lap again.
He got his hand caught in the machine.
He said. Curly's wife laughed.
Okay, machine. I'll talk to you later. I like machines.
Candy broke in.
You let this guy alone. You do not messing around with him. I'm gonna tell George what you says. George won't have you messing around with Lenny.
Who's George?
She asked.
The little guy you come with?
Lenny smiled happily.
That's him.
He said.
That's the guy, and he's gonna let me tend the rabbits.
Well, if that's all you want, I might get a couple of rabbits myself.
Crooks stood up from his bunk and faced her.
I had enough.
He said coldly.
You got no rights coming in a colored man's world. You got no rights messing around in here at all. Now you just get out and get out quick. If you don't, I'm gonna ask the boss not to ever let you come in the barn no more.
She turned on him in scorn.
Listen, nigga.
She said.
You know what I can do to you if you open your trap?
Crooks stared hopelessly at her, and then he sat down on his bunk and drew into himself. She closed on him.
You know what I could do?
Crooks seemed to grow smaller, and then he pressed himself against the wall.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, you keep your place then, nigger. I could get you strung up on a tree so easy it ain't even funny.
Crooks had reduced himself to nothing. There was no personality, no ego, nothing to arouse either like or dislike. He said,
Yes, ma'am.
and his voice was toneless. For a moment she stood over him as though waiting for him to move so that he could whip at him again. But Crooks sat perfectly still, his eyes averted, everything that might be hurt drawn in. She turned at last to the other two. Old Candy was watching her, fascinated.
If you was to do that, well,
We'll
tell.
He said quietly.
We'll tell about you framing crooks.
Tell and be damned.
She cried.
Nobody'd listen to you, and you know it. Nobody'd listen to you.
Candy subsided.
No,
He agreed.
nobody listened to us.
Lenny whined.
I wish George was here. I wish George was here.